The struggle is real.
Illustrations by me.
Look, I get asked all the time, how do you price artwork? I understand how difficult this is. It's harder for an artist to tell you how much they charge for their artwork than it is for them to go create the artwork and then show it to strangers. As hard as that is, people go into like palpitations when they try and price their artwork. They're like, oh, I didn't do it. Just, there can be a method to how you do it, and you don't have to feel guilty or bad about what you're asking for. So I'm going to share how I come to the pricing for my artwork. Hopefully it helps. I have no idea if it will. If you're a basket case, you're a basket case. Sometimes there's nothing that's going to console you, but you can have a couple of principles to jot down to say, this is how I'm going to work my pricing. And after I break everything down, the method of how I do pricing, there are some of you freaks who only watch these videos if there's a painting in them. So I will then immediately do a painting of one that I haven't done in quite a while that I do enjoy doing. So let's see how that works out. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so most people say this is how a lot of artists do it. There's a couple different ways to do it. I do not recommend doing, okay, listen. I don't recommend breaking this down by how many hours you've worked on a piece and breaking it down by the cost of the materials, and then you double the cost of the materials, then you figure out your hourly wage and all that stuff. Let me tell you why. As you get better creating art, if you're used to getting, let's say you say, I want to make $20 an hour. So you go ahead and you say, this piece here took me 4 hours times $20 an hour is going to equal $80. So I'm going to price this at $80 plus materials. Okay. If you do that and then you get better at what you're doing, you're screwing yourself, because you're now going to say the same piece in a year is going to take you 2 hours to do, times 20 equals $40 plus materials. Do you see how that's a dumb way to do it? You don't ever want to do this, because you're going to cheat yourself. As you get better as an artist, you're going to cheat yourself out of money. So you don't want to do this. So now what a lot of other artists do, they say, okay, well, we're going to take this is the size of it here, and I'm going to say the length or the height by the length times width. You know what I mean. Length times width, and that's what I'm going to charge, and I'm going to do a multiplication. So it's length times width. So if this is going to be, I'm just saying, let me just throw out numbers here that I'm going to work with. Let's say you do a 10 by 10. Okay? You're going to have a $100 piece. That's what you're going to do right here. As you get better and you get more experienced and you start selling a lot of stuff, you might start adding a factor to this and say, I'm going to do length times width times a factor. So length times width times a factor. What does a factor mean? It means you have the 10 by 10, and then you're also, which equals your 100, but you're also going to then multiply that by a factor of 2. So now you're going to make $200 on that piece, or 1.5, or however you're going to do that. As you get better at skill and you create better pieces and your stuff starts selling, you may do that. Here's why I don't like that, and I'm not the only artist to ever say this. If you've ever seen, when I started looking at pricing artwork, I saw a video by, I believe it was Lockery Fine Art, Lisa. And she kind of explained this, and it made perfect sense. If you have, so yeah, if you have something different, as you start to scale in size, it becomes very much, the measure, the ratio goes up to a very different way. So if you have, let's say you do a 20 by 40, but you're used to doing times a factor of 2. So you're going to do that first. You're going to have here 800 times 2. You're going to have $1,600 that you're going to charge for that 20 by 40. And some people do that. Your 10 by 10 was 200, and your 20 by 40, so you've doubled this, and then you've multiplied that by 4, but you're adding a lot more money to the sides, to the end. So here's how I like to do things. This is just me. If you want to do this, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with this. People can understand it. It's just harder for the end user to understand as you're going through sizes. So now if you go ahead and you just change the size a little bit, make it 24 by 32, it looks a little different times 2, and you're basically still getting the 1536, but it's going to appear to be a smaller painting than this one here by it's going to look a little bit significantly different. A 20 by 40 by 24 by 32 is just going to look significantly different. They're basically going to pay the same amount of money. So sometimes it's hard for people to grasp. So what I do, and people say, well, how much, I want you to do this, and how much is that going to cost? And so, or I want a different size, how much is that going to cost? Length times width, people can do it themselves, but sometimes the size is much different when they start to look at the value of the painting. So let me show you what I do. I do this next method plus a variation. So let me show you what I do. So I'm going to take that same thing. We're going to say it's a 10 by 10, only I'm going to do adding the length and the width. So I'm going to do length plus width. So my 10 by 10 is going to equal $20. Now that I'm then going to multiply by a factor. And I'm going to make that factor dependent on what I'm doing this on. For example, if I'm just using ink on paper, I might do that times a factor of 3 and say, okay, a 10 by 10 I'm going to charge $60 for. I'm not telling you these are the numbers you should use. We're going to go into that in a second. I'm just trying to give you an idea of how to figure out your price. So now let's say I'm going to change this a little bit, and I say, okay, that was for ink on paper, watercolor and ink on paper. Now I'm going to add watercolor to it, so I'm using something that's a little bit more costly. So I'm going to have that same $20. I might multiply that times 4 now and charge $80 for that watercolor that I just did with the line and wash. So I might do that. Now we're going to switch to something else. What if I do watercolor on like a mixed media artboard? Some of those are, the paper might be $2 a piece. The mixed media artboard might be something like $3 or $5 a piece. It depends on what it is. So I may do that 20 times 5, and now it's $100 because I've changed what it's going on, and I've changed, now I'm going to change the medium on top of it again, and say, let's say I do an acrylic on board or something like that. Now that board could cost $20 by itself. The acrylic is going to cost a lot more, because once you squeeze out that tube, whatever that paint is on that tray or whatever, that's trash now. You've got to use it up or throw it away. Where at the watercolor, it's forgiving. You put too much on there, you just let it dry, you use it again next time. The acrylic is very different, so it costs a lot more. So I might go as high as a factor of 8 on that. So I might have the 20 times 8, so now I'm charging $160 if it's acrylic. If I put acrylic on board, I might even charge more than that. I might do a factor of 10. It just depends on what I'm doing here. So what I have is a file that I keep, and I'm going to show you there's also a different multiplier that I'm going to apply to this. So now these are going to become the base prices for that particular thing on that particular material. But now here's the other thing. I'm also going to say, if I want to sell that piece for, let me clear that. If I say I want to keep this piece, I want to hold on to it, I don't care if this sells. If it doesn't sell, I'm more than happy to keep it. I might change this over to $75 because I don't care if I sell it. Now, if I really want it, if I don't care that I even have it, and I keep it for a while, I might say, no, let me just mark it down. I'll put it at $50. That's what I'll have it at when I set it. Now, I don't mark it down. This is what I set it as. So I say, okay, it's not really a piece that I really like. I don't mind if I get rid of it at all. I'm going to lower it a little bit from here and make it $50 and get rid of it. Or I'm going to increase it, because if it doesn't sell, I'm happy with that. I'm fine with that. So I could have two pieces that are 10 by 10, one's 50, one's 75, just because of how much I like it, or how much I'm willing to part with it, how much I'm willing to let go of it. And here's the rule of thumb that I use. If whatever I end up selling it for, I have to have two things. I have to be happy that I'm selling it at that price. I can't feel like I'm getting ripped off, and I can't feel like I'm ripping someone else off. I have to be comfortable with what I'm charging for that piece. Now, let me tell you something else. You'll hear a lot of artists tell you that if you price things a certain way, for a lot of artists, this is way too low. This is way too low for a lot of artists. They don't ever charge this little for any kind of piece like this. But here's what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm happy if I sell it for that $60. I'm happy if I sell it for the $50 or $75. I'm okay with doing that. I don't feel like I'm ripping anybody off. I feel like I'm doing just fine with that, and I'm very happy with getting that money for it. And the other thing, but a lot of artists will look at me and they'll say, "Oh, you're hurting us because you're charging so little that now when we charge money, it's gonna look so absorbent. It's gonna be like an absorbent amount of money for the same kind of size of work." But here's the thing. If people want to buy my stuff, this is what they pay. If they want to buy your stuff, that is what they pay. You could charge 3 times what I charge, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't have a lot of sales, so I stay relatively lower. I'd rather stay lower and slowly increase my prices because then nobody feels like they're getting ripped off, rather than price it very high. I price it for 3 times that much, $180, and then I've got to walk it back every month or so. But someone else might have bought that piece for $180, and now as the other ones start to go back in price, they feel like they were ripped off. So you want to start at a lower price and gradually increase it as you start to sell more. I hope that makes some sense. But you're not affecting anybody else's prices. Don't let anybody put you on a guilt trip that you got to charge more money because they're charging more money. That's absolute nonsense. That is garbage. Those people should be kicked by a donkey. So this is what I'm saying here. I'm saying that I'm happy charging my prices. Now, these are not the exact prices that I charge, but this is an idea. I'm just trying to give you an idea so you can see what I'm talking about. But I'm happy charging what I charge, and when I sell that thing, I hope the person getting it is happy and doesn't feel like they're being ripped off by what I'm charging. And there's another thing. There's another factor you have to figure in. If this was a color pencil piece, and it was a giant piece of paper, and it was $60, I would definitely feel ripped off. Because color pencil takes a long time. Now, if you're a color pencil person that does a lot of layers, so you use like the oil pencils, like the Faber-Castell Polychromos pencils, and you go tons of layers of those pencils, and it takes you like, maybe you could do 2 a month of that particular thing. Now you're charging $60. You're only ever going to make $120 a month, even if you sell everything you make. That's ridiculous. So you'll have to go way higher, and you have to allow that medium and whatever you're putting it on to help dictate what you're charging. That's important. So just figure out something. That's what I have. I have a little sheet of paper that I made. Well, it's not a sheet. It's a spreadsheet on the computer. But you know what I mean. And I put the formulas on there, and I say, okay, for this size, with this formula, this is my multiplier when I'm using this medium, and I'm putting it on this, and that's what I'm going to do. So, and I refer to that, and then I say, I decide whether I like it or not, and that's what I do there. So you have to make sure that you're happy with what you're doing. That's the most important thing. And don't feel bad about asking for money for art. Let me tell you something. Art is a luxury. It is not a necessity. You're not starving someone if you charge too much for your art and they can't afford it. You're not making someone homeless if that happens. If they're spending money on your art, it's because they have the extra money to spend. It's just something. It's a luxury. It's something that you get when you want to beautify something. You want to add to something. You want to put it up on your wall, or you want to support a collector. Whatever that is, it's not something detrimental. So don't feel bad about charging money for it. It's a skill. Not everyone has it, and not everyone does it, which means you can charge money. Have you ever tried to call a plumber when something breaks? And they're like, I don't even know if I can get to you in the next 10 weeks because I'm just booked up. I have a skill. I charge a lot of money for that skill, and everybody pays me for it. Well, guess what? This is a form of skill that you're offering people that they don't need. The plumber they need, but they don't need this. So when the plumber rips somebody off by charging them so much they have to remortgage their house to fix a clogged toilet, that's on them. But you are not doing that to someone. You right here are selling something that they are wanting. It's a want. It is not a need. So don't ever feel guilty about that. I hope that answers this question. And if you have any questions on this thing here, just let me know. Let me know if you want to do something, you think something might be unfair, or you want to try doing something a different way because you think the way that I said it is wrong. Whatever the case is, you do what you want to do, and I'm here to listen to it. And now that all of you have suffered through me yammering on, it's finally time to get to the actual drawing of this particular video. Okay, so like I said, this drawing is something I really enjoy doing. I love doing this kind of rough sketching with this brush pen and then putting in a bunch of lines and details with a fine liner and then going back in with some paint. And sometimes I go back in and fix a couple of lines with the ink. That's not a problem for me. Don't mind it at all. This whole thing started, there's a red section right in the center. That's what I based the whole thing on. It was actually a picture of a flower. It was like a red flower that was folded down, and I based the entire rest of the drawing on this red flower. So that's just how I started, and that's where I built on it. But yeah, it was a fun drawing. I love doing these. I haven't done them in a while, but I do enjoy doing them. Now I want to talk to you about something here. I want you to just, I need you to just be a little bit gentle with some YouTubers when you hear them do certain things, like promote certain companies and you don't understand why they're promoting them. And the offers that companies give sometimes are hard to turn down. Now, I've just turned one down. I'm not going to tell you what the company name is, but you know, anyway, it's a popular one that's coming up now. Don't worry about that. The point is, what they offered was, they offered me $300 in free products. That's to start with. Then you get up to $1,000 in seeding balance and a $500 influencer cash per calculation cycle. Now I asked them what those things meant, and they basically said, oh, the $1,000 seeding balance is what you can start with, but that's what the free products is, so I don't understand that. And then they said, yeah, and then there's a $500 influencer cash per calculation cycle. I don't know what that means. I said, how long is the calculation cycle? They didn't really expound on that and tell me what that was. There's extra discounts for you guys. That would be a discount for you guys. Up to 20% commission on orders from users that are referred. Up to $5 cash for every referral for a downloadable app that you would use. So there's a bunch of different things that there's like, oh, if you start looking at this, you're thinking, cha-ching, there's money everywhere, all over the place. Whether that money actually makes it to your bank account is another story. But anyway, sometimes it's hard. The reason that I didn't go for it, I'm not, like I said, I'm not going into the company that it was, but it just doesn't fit you guys. I don't want to just, this is not something I'm trying to push for everybody to just make a bunch of money. So I want to make sure if I do refer a company that they're actually going to fit the audience. And this company, I don't think they do. At least they don't fit my style for my audience, what I would tell you. And I do have Amazon links down below all the time. And a lot of you buy stuff through there. It doesn't tell me who it is, but I do thank you for when you do that. But this particular other company, it's a little shady, and there's some shady business practices, and I don't want you involved in that, so I turned the offer down. But you understand what some of these companies are offering YouTubers, and a lot of them will say, oh, I got this haul from this other company, and you know, I understand why they're doing it. You have to be a little gentle with them, offer a little grace. I understand they got to pay their bills too, just like everybody else. And sometimes you come across a company that fits your audience and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm proud to represent a certain company, and then, you know, have that kind of a deal. But there's a lot of pressure because you want to make money as a YouTuber. You want to make sure that you can keep going with what you're doing, and it takes a lot of investment. I know we don't talk about it, but believe me, what I brought in last year from the channel, I've spent like 5 times as much. So it was just, and I know it's a young channel, it's just getting started. There are many of you have contributed monetarily to the channel. Thank you so much for doing that. Plus there's AdSense on it, so it's a little bit of money, but it takes a lot to run a channel and to constantly have ideas and to constantly review products and all those things. So there's that carrot dangling in front of your face to say, you know, I could do that. And it would be very beneficial for me, but would it be beneficial for you? And sometimes, and that's not a, I'm not trying to say that I'm so much better than everybody else. This is just, everybody has to evaluate their own audience and say, what am I willing to say, hey, this is good, and what am I not? Now, you will also see soon, I hope, I don't know when it's going to happen, but there was another company that contacted me and said, hey, we'd like to send you these products for free, and then I think they're going to offer a discount code for you guys to buy something, but there's no commission on that. So I don't get any commission on it, but they at least sending me some free products to look at. And that one particular product, I said, yes, I am very interested in that. It's something that I want to use. So I will be happy to review it on the channel. They're not paying me to do that. They're not paying me to say anything. Whatever I say about it is going to be whatever it is. And don't worry about that. Believe me, I'll do the disclaimer crap that everybody has to say. I'll say all that when that video comes up. I'll say, yes, this was sent to me, and I'm not paid to say anything, but they did send it to me, and they look pretty interesting, so I hope that product is okay with what's coming in. But the other stuff, the other company that was like, oh, we're going to give you all this money and all this free stuff, and you can order whatever you want and do it, I just didn't think it was a right fit, so I'm not going to go forward with it. But I understand why other YouTubers would, because that temptation to actually make the channel profitable is a big temptation. You want that to happen. Eventually it does, but you still want it to happen. And sometimes it's hard to get to that point, so you're struggling to get there, and you're kind of like, I could just do it right now and get to that point, or I can not do it right now, and then I'll just have to wait a little longer. But you have to make sure that you're not abusing the people that are trusting you when you tell them stuff. Listen, most of the stuff that I tell you, if I show you anything and I say I like it, I really like it, and I really enjoy it. And I always tell you, you may not like it. It may not work for you. It works for me, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. You have to do your own research and figure that out. Sometimes I give you as much information as I can. All the times I give you as much information as I have when I look at something. But I also tell you, hey, don't trust me when I talk about Stillman and Byrne books, because when I talk about them, I have a weird connection with them in my brain. And so I'm not really entirely fair. If that was a different company, I might say don't ever use that book. I have no idea. But right now I say, no, I love that book and I want to use that book. And I'm going to tell you that I like it. So, but just like this book right here that I'm using in this video, you see right down the center there, that whole seam is cracking. All of the binding is just peeling apart right down the center. It doesn't affect the paper at all. But the binding right down the center is cracking. This is the Hahnemuhle book, which I love this book. I use it all the time. I think it's a great book. I'll recommend it to anybody. But obviously there's a binding problem in this particular one, and it's cracking down the middle. But it doesn't affect me or anything I'm doing. Once I get past that page, it's not going to fall out on me. That's the point. It's not going to fall apart. It just looks like it's coming apart at the seams. You can see it a little bit right there, right down the center. But don't worry about it. But I will tell you, yeah, this is great stuff, and I really enjoy this. And sometimes people get it, and they're like, hey, yeah, but it cracked down the center. That doesn't affect me, so I don't understand why that would be a problem. Sometimes that's a problem for people. So if that's a problem for you, don't get the book. If it's not a problem for you, then get the book, because it's a great book. So, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. But you're always going to find that no matter what you do in life, you're going to find that temptation to possibly get ahead a little bit quicker by doing something that you think is a little shady, and you have to realize that it's not really worth it in the end, because you'll eventually get there anyway, and you'd rather get there following your principles than compromising your principles and getting there a little bit quicker. It's just not worth it. But when you see other YouTubers do that, just understand where they're coming from. I usually have pity on people who do that, people who are asking for things all the time or doing that. I feel bad for that person, because sometimes they really need it. Sometimes they're not doing it just to do this for a hobby. Sometimes they're doing it so they can put food on their table, and they're like, look, I need this, so I have to push it constantly all the time. And I understand that. Just listen, when people do stuff like that, just try and picture where they're coming from, extend a little bit of grace, and maybe if you feel like you want to help them anyway, even though you know the thing that they're peddling you would not use, you can help them anyway. But you just have to be careful with certain things and the way people say things, and if something is sponsored or not sponsored. Sometimes sponsored. If you look at certain companies and they're like, oh, this video is brought to you by, and they say a name, I'm not going to say it, but they all say the same thing about the same product. It's like they're being fed the line to say. And which, if it's true, it's not a bad thing. If it was like, oh, I'm just going to use an example here. This is not the case, but right now I'm using the Copic, I think it's the SP line of fine liner, which are the more expensive ones. They're the metal barrels, and you put the inserts in and all that. I might say, these pens will last forever. You won't ever have to throw them into a landfill and all that other stuff. And those things are all true, but it might have been something that I'm being fed from the company, because they're good at marketing too. So they're going to say, oh no, we want you to mention this, and then we'll pay you for a video. And you say, okay, I understand that. Now, if it's not true and you say it, that's on you. But if it's true and you say it just because they told you to say it, doesn't make it wrong. It's just, that's what it is. Artists have this weird thing with money. I mean, we're talking about it before, about pricing, but I mean different than that. It's like this strange belief that if you are actually making money at what you're doing and you're making good money, then somehow you're cheating something. You're hurting someone, or you're stepping on someone. That's not how it is. You're making money in an honest way. When you go to work every single day and your boss gives you a paycheck because you did your job and you did it well, and your agreement with them is if you do your job well, they pay you. So you don't take that money and then feel bad that you took it from them, do you? Absolutely not. So when you're doing some kind of art, or you're doing some kind of service for someone or something like that, and you charge a normal amount of money and you do really good at it, and you start making more money from it, and you start being able to put money away in the bank, you're paying off your old debt, sometimes you're putting money away for the future, you have more money than you're thinking what you can do with right now, and then you feel guilty about, oh no, I'm making too much money doing this. I should be suffering for this. It's like a weird mental block people have. Listen, you got to make money, you got to put food on your table, and if you can make a living doing what you're doing and paying bills and being able to get ahead a little bit, good for you. Do what you have to do to get to that point. So long as you're not compromising anything that you stand for, any of your morals or things like that, then just do it. It's okay. You don't have to feel bad that you're making money doing something you love to do. You don't always have to suffer for everything. Like I said, it's a weird mental place that people put themselves in. And so when they see someone like a YouTuber saying, hey, you should buy this because it's great, they're like, oh, they're shills. They're just saying it because they don't even believe it themselves. They're just doing it to trick me to get my money. No, don't worry about that. That's not what they're doing at all. They're just, maybe they believe in that thing. I'm not saying that they're never doing that for some reason. Of course, there's always the possibility that they are doing that. But you have to kind of weigh that out and evaluate it. Is this something that person always does? Because maybe they always do that. Maybe they're always just being paid to sell you something, and they tell you something is not true all the time. That you have to evaluate that kind of person. But most people, they're just telling you what they need to tell you. If they didn't believe in it, they probably wouldn't be telling it to their audience. That's the truth for most people. Other people, yes, sometimes they do that kind of thing. You don't want to be around those people. But you as an artist, when you're charging for your pieces that you're creating, don't feel bad. You're creating something and you're putting skill into it. You need to be able to be happy with what you're getting for it. You shouldn't feel like you're ripping someone off, but you should feel like you're getting paid what you're worth for that thing. And if you're not going to get paid what you're worth, then why would you even do it? Why would you, I don't mean why would you create the art, I mean why would you sell the art? If you're not going to be happy with what you're getting for it, why would you sell it? Just keep it then. I just went in a lot of circles with that information right there. I was talking about one thing, then I started talking about something different, but It doesn't matter. You're used to that. If you watch this channel for any length of time, you're used to that. I ran around in circles. We don't remember where we started from. I don't even remember the point I was trying to make. That's how we do things here, and you're okay with that. And if you're watching this at this point, you're okay with it at least. I would hope so. Either that or you're a little strange yourself, and maybe you're not okay with it, but you can't just stop listening. That's it. I mean, it's a good thing for me, but it might not be the best thing for you. So, and while we're on the subject of things that might not be the best thing for you, let's talk about these shorts things that people love to watch on YouTube. I don't enjoy shorts at all. Sometimes I do watch them, but what I always find myself doing, and I've talked about this before probably 10 times, but what I've noticed recently, because YouTube is pushing them hard right now, and I thought they were going to stop doing that, but they started doing it again really hard. But I find myself just watching things and just I want to see more of what they're saying. Like they stop mid-sentence and that was the short. And I'm like, wait a minute, I want to hear the whole conversation. Where do I find the whole video of this thing? And all it is a bunch of different shorts that are chained together that you have to go look up and find and figure out where they put them. And I don't like that at all. I would rather just do a long form video so I can see everything you have to say about that thing and I don't have to go through 30 different shorts just to figure out what you were saying. I hate when they do that for just about everything that I see now is a long form video chopped up into a short, and the short itself sounds like it could be good. I don't really have all the context, but it could be good, but then I don't know if it's good because I gotta go find the rest of it somewhere. And it annoys the living crap out of me. I'm not doing them anymore. I have some shorts up on the channel, but I started doing it when they were like, oh, you have to do it or they won't show your show to anybody. Well, then don't show it. I don't care. I'd rather not annoy the crap out of myself and my audience by showing shorts constantly and not giving them the full picture of what I was talking about, the whole idea behind it, the context that was said in. That's very important. And you don't know it all because you just, oh yeah, that person just told a joke. But why? What were they referring to? What led into that? Something has to lead into what they're saying, and then they say it, and then something leads out of it. You get something out of it, but it's just not. It's not right. I just don't like it, and I don't think it's going to destroy anything. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's going to destroy the generation because they're not going to be able to think and all this other stuff. I don't think that's entirely true. I think if people do have short attention spans, but they have for years. I have a short attention span, not for something I'm very, very interested in, but if it's not something I'm entirely interested in, I have a short attention span. When I was in school, I was in grade school, and we had the slightly tilted desks, and I was the kid in the class that put the pencil at the top of the desk and let it roll down, and then I blew it back up to the top, and then I let it roll down and see how close I can get to the edge before it falls off. And because I had even a little bit of interest in what that person at the front of the room was talking about, it had nothing to do with me. So I don't care what you're talking about. And later I had some interest in things that they would have been saying, but as a young kid I didn't. And as a matter of fact, I didn't retain anything that was something I wasn't interested in. If I wasn't interested in it, you couldn't pay me to retain it. I don't. I have no idea what was actually said in many different subjects in school unless I happen to be interested in those things. And that's how I feel about most of the thing. I don't know. Again, here I am again. I have no idea how I got here. We're talking about short videos and I'm telling you about school. You see where this is going? It's not a good place. It's just, I do this all day in my head. I just go in circles. I'm thinking about one thing. I end up completely in a different category somewhere else. It's a scary place to be in here, but don't worry about it. I'm just here to entertain you. Hopefully I'm saying something that, I don't know, maybe it makes sense to you. Who knows? I have no idea until I get the comments from you saying, yes, I can relate to what you just said, even though it was like 3 times over a different subject. But don't worry about that. It's just, can you relate to anything? Do you relate to nothing? Just, you wouldn't be here if you related to nothing. You'd already be off this video. It's gone on way too long. and I've discussed absolutely nothing. And so I think it's time to go. And you know what? You have to blame these people. Again, I'm telling you, has nothing to do with me. They're paying for this whole thing. And so if they're paying for it, they must like it, I guess. I don't know, but I'm sure they do. So thumb up the video if you are going to do any. What was I talking about in the video? Okay, so thumb up the video if you are going to price your artwork the way that you want to price it. You're going to figure it out and say, look, this is how much money I want to make on this size painting or this size drawing or whatever you're doing, and I'm going to do it unashamedly. I'm just going to say, this is how much it costs. Don't worry if you don't want it. That's okay. You don't have to buy it. It's not going to put you out. You're not going to starve. Your electric isn't going to get cut off. Your kids are still going to get their food. You're not going to go all of a sudden have no house or have no clothing or anything else from it. You're not going to have no gas for your car. It's not going to be like that. You can still not buy my artwork for this price and be fine for the rest of your life. But if you do want my artwork, this is how much it costs. And just, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, and you shouldn't be ashamed of it. Alright, if you would like to join our community, go to illustrationsbypete.com. You can come in, you can put your own artwork on the site and promote it. You can find some inspiration in the free reference photos. You can just use them however you want in your artwork. You do not need to credit me. Or you can come into the forums and talk to some people and maybe give some advice and maybe find a little bit of information that helps you. So come check us out. Alright, that's about it for me. I'm going to go. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.